So I always say that when you feel down, pick up one of your favorite books. Get lost in it for a while. It may turn things around, or it may just give you an escape for a little bit. So here we go again with Cowboy Strong by Carolyn Brown. Page 91. This is a short page. You kids are on your own for dinner, Matt said as they left the church. I'm meeting my poker buddies in Mexican for at Twilla. But Daddy, we always have Sunday dinner together, Elena said. It's Mother's Day. That was before you got engaged. Matt patted her on the shoulder. You go on with Pax and have a good time. Don't worry, Joy understands. He disappeared into the crowd, heading for the door. I thought we might go to Amarillo. We always take Ma'am to a little pizza parlor on Mother's Day, Pax said. Is that all right with you? She looped her arm into his and pulled him along. I'd love to see Iris. Haven't talked to her in months. Page 92-93. I've always envied you in having Iris, she whispered. When Mama died, I wish she was my grandma. Well, I damn sure was jealous that you had Matt, Pax told her, especially after Grandpa died. She turned her head so she could look at him. Yes, life don't promise us a bed of roses. Yeah, it does, he argued, only life doesn't take off the thorns. You got that right, she told him. But I'm sure looking forward to having Sunday dinner with her, even though it's only pizza? He asked. Yep, she answered. Sounds wonderful. Craving it, are you? He teased. Yep, and you get up with the baby at 3 o'clock at feeding every night, she popped off. Oh, man, he groaned. You really know how to hurt a cowboy. You're strong. You can do it. After all, you're marrying me, and you know what the gossip hounds say, don't you? She asked. Then I'm a lucky man, he ventured. Nope, they say that it'll take a strong cowboy to marry Elena Joy Carey because she's taller than most men, and she's most stubborn than all of them, she sighed. Pax had heard that said before, and he agreed with it wholeheartedly. Elena could outride, outshoot, outranch nearly every cowboy in the state. But not one of those other men held her when she sobbed because her daddy was dying. They didn't make him so strong. It made him a good friend that she trusted enough to let him see her at her most vulnerable. It used to hurt my feelings and make me feel ugly, she went on. But then I figured that if I was going to have the name, then by damn I was going to have the game. I'd beat out all those cowboys at whatever game they were playing. Did you know that I even tried to go out for football, but the school, my daddy said no? Didn't know that, but can't say I didn't say as I'm surprised, Pax answered as he drove past the Welcome to Amarillo sign. Do you like football that much, or were you on a mission? Loved to watch it on TV with Daddy, but at the time I was pretty much trying to live up to what folks said about me, she admitted. Darling, you might not realize it, but when you walk into a room or a bar, every man in the place can't take his eyes off you. I've considered selling bibs at the door of the Wild Cowboy so the drool don't ruin their shirts, he said. I don't believe a word of that BS, but thank you. She smiled at him as they pulled into Iris's parking lot, and Iris waved from the bench by the front door and stood up. The second the vehicle came to a stop, Elena hopped out, met Iris halfway. She bent and gave Iris a hug, and then held out her hand so Iris could see the engagement ring. When they finished talking about the ring, Elena helped Iris out into the back seat. Happy Mom's Day, ma'am. Pax said you've got a present back there somewhere. She fastened her seat belt and dug into the gift bag. Oh my goodness, there's enough little chocolate bars in here to keep me happy for a month. And this card is lovely. You always pick out the prettiest Mother's Day card. She reached between the seats and laid a hand on his shoulder. Thank you, kids, so much. That was 92, 93, 94. Here's 95 and 96. You deserve a truckload of candy for raising Maverick and Pax, Elena said. I can't think of a better Mother's Day than spending the afternoon with y'all. I'm so glad y'all came to your senses and realized you were made for each other. I've known for years that you would wind up together. It was written in the stars when you were little kids. I looked at the stars every night and I didn't see anything like that, Elena said. Me neither, Pax agreed. Well, y'all didn't have my binoculars, Iris smarted off. Pax drove out of the parking lot and drove back down toward the two ladies chatted about the wedding details. His mind was on pizza, not the wedding. I'm going to come home for a week or two before the wedding so I don't miss out on anything. Iris's voice took Pax's mind off food. Besides, I want to spend some time with Bridget and Layla. Living at the center is great, and I love it there. I've settled in. I've made a lot of friends, but nothing beats spending time with family. Call me whenever you're ready, and I'll be here to pick you up. Pax looked in the rearview mirror and smiled at his grandmother. Iris opened a miniature candy bar and popped it into her mouth. A couple of these will be my little appetizers before pizza. I love that you're getting married in the barn. You both are ranchers, so it's perfect. I guess you'll be living at Bar C. Yeah, but I'll still be helping out at the ranch. Pax drove right up to the front door of the pizza place. You ladies can get out here. I'll park and be right in. That's wonderful, thank you, Iris said as she slid out of the back seat. 94, 95, 96. Pax had been worrying that Mam would see right through their ruse, but so far things have gone so much better than he expected. She was excited about the wedding, that he'd been keeping hands in Callahan Ranch. She always loved Elena, so that was a plus. Still, he hated the guilty feeling that wrapped around his heart and soul. Mam and Matt always wanted the same thing, to see their kids settled and happy. Matt would be gone, so he would never know what happened, but Mam's heart would be broken. Page 102. 2 days had passed now since he'd seen Elena. On one hand, he missed spending time with her. On the other hand, he enjoyed the hard work, something he was used to and could do without much thought, and not having to worry about being the perfect fiancé. He got dressed for work in his faded jeans and tank top, slipped into a soft chambray work shirt, and headed into the kitchen. Maverick was putting a platter of biscuits on the table. Did you stay out all night? Nope, I was too tired to do anything more than send a text to Elena and tell her good night, and then fell right to sleep. Pax poured himself a cup of coffee, turned to Bridget. She says the wedding invitations are going out today and that y'all have an appointment at the bridal shop tomorrow afternoon. That means you two better get the hay baled, Bridget said, because Maverick is going to Amarillo with me. He's going to take Layla to the park while Elena and I both try on dresses, so it's either get the job done today or you'll be doing it on your own tomorrow afternoon, Pax. I'll hold down the fort, Pax offered. Thanks, Bridget. Put the rest of the breakfast on the table. Wedding invitations, Maverick said. You really are serious about this, aren't you? Pax put 2 biscuits on his plate and passed them on to Maverick. Maybe when you go get fitted for the tux, you'll believe me. You mean it's going to be that formal, so us guys will have to wear one of those hot monkey suits? Maverick frowned. Yes, but Elena says you can wear your cowboy boots if they're black. She's going to let the girls wear boots, too. She says that it's only right since it's a barn wedding, Pax said. Guess I'll be shopping for cowboy boots today, too, then, Bridget smiled. I've wanted a pair for a while, and this gives me the perfect excuse to buy them. Wonderful, Pax said. You're turning into a real Texan. Anything to change the subject, because Pax would be glad when the wedding was over and done with, so everyone would stop talking about it. An hour later, he was in the cab of an air-conditioned tractor mowing hay, and all he could think about was the wedding. It seemed like the song that came on his favorite country station that morning had to do with weddings. First, Thomas Rhett sang "Marry Me." The lyrics reminded Pax that he would likely have to sit by someday and watch Elena marry someone else. A shot of jealousy ran through him. He didn't want to be the one sitting at the back of the church when she was saying "I do." He didn't want her walking by with a wedding ring on her finger that had been put there by another man. Then Scotty McCreery came in with "This Is It." The words talked about a bride walking down the aisle and how the two of them would be on top of the world together forever. Pax knew that Scotty had written his own song for his own wife, and Pax would see Elena walking down the aisle, but there would be none of that forever after stuff for them. When Blake Shelton started singing "God Gave Me You," Pax turned off the radio and called Elena. She answered on the first ring, and he could hear the beat of the music in the background. "I hear a tractor. Are you raking or cutting?" she sniffed. "Are you crying?" he asked. "Is Matt all right?" Is it Matt? Is he all right?" "He's fine, but he's told me this morning he's got a doctor's appointment every Tuesday. He won't let me go with him." She broke down and sobbed. That was page 102, 103. We're moving on to 104. "Do I need to come over there?" he asked. "No, I was thinking about a song for the daddy-daughter dance at the wedding," Elena answered, and found by Heartland called "I Loved Her First." It's perfect, but it reminds me that he'll never see his grandkids, and he won't be there when I get married for real, Elena said, and the reason behind this wedding makes it heartbreaking as a funeral. "I should stop this tractor and just come over there. You need me," he said. "I'm in a tractor, too. Lucas and I are raking hay. First and foremost, right now we're ranchers, and you can't come running every single time I get sad, so keep working. Talk to me, she said. Turn off the music, he suggested. I had to turn off my radio. Okay, she said, but then thoughts makes me cry. I'm going to put on a good audio book I've been listening to. Maybe that will take my mind off things, she said. I'll call you when I'm not such a mess. I can be there in 5 minutes if you change your mind, he said. He barely ended the call when his phone rang again, and this time it was Matt. Hello, he said. Pax, I want to tell you something, and I want you to promise me that you won't say a thing to Elena. Matt said. That might be tough, Pax said. I know y'all are engaged and all, but this has nothing to do with anything but the two of you. The thing is, she's taken this business of my upcoming death pretty hard. I don't want to talk about the funeral with her, but she needs to know the arrangements have already been made. I've even taken care of clothes I'll be buried in and ordered the flowers for the top of the casket. Everything is taken care of, so when the time comes, I want you to hold her and comfort her and tell her that all she has to do is show up for the graveside service. Matt took a deep breath. It will be easier for her if the service is short and sweet. A few songs, a few words from the preacher, and then you take her home and love her for the rest of your lives. Promise me that, son. I promised. By his reasoning, it wasn't a lie. He wasn't giving his word to stay married to her, but he only loved her. He could do that as a friend. A lump stuck in Pat's throat. When he thought about having to go to Matt's funeral, the man had been there for him countless times through the years. Thank you. I hear the engine of a tractor, so I won't keep you, Matt said, and the call ended. Impulsively, Pax reached out and turned the radio on. Vince Gill was singing Whenever You Come Around. The words of the song said that whenever his lady came around, that he smiled and the world turned upside down. That was the truth, Pax muttered. Okay, that was 102, 103, 104, 105. Moving forward to the next paper clip. Takes us to 111. Ooh, this is a short one. Elena thought about walking down the aisle on her father's arm and putting her hand into Pax's. She found herself hoping that on this wedding day she could make her father's wishes come true, even if hers couldn't, and that this was really the wedding of his dreams. Someday she would marry a man who had really proposed to her, not a friend who was doing her a big favor. Okay, page 112, 113, and 114. Elena waited until the women were gone, and she sat down in a wing-back chair, put her hands over her eyes, and she wept silently as she could. The week that had gone by so fast that it was nothing but a blur. She wished she could slow time down and savor every single moment. She knew whatever time she had left with her dad would go all too quickly. Stop it, she scolded herself as she took her hands away from her face. Some folks don't even get one extra hour with their loved one. Think about Pax and Maverick's grandpa. He dropped with a heart attack right where he stood. They didn't even have time to say their goodbyes, and things weren't arranged. She wasn't sure which was worse, the shock of a death when it happened suddenly, or having the time to know that it was coming to an end. I have got to stop this and enjoy what time I have with him. This should be a wonderful time, not one of sorrow, she whispered to her reflection in the mirror. She left the dressing room and went out to sit in the chair, and Bridget had vacated. She had just sat down when her phone rang. Expecting it to be her father, she answered it even without looking at the screen. So you like the dress, do you? She asked. Wouldn't know, Pax said. If you'll send me a picture of it, I'll be glad to pass judgment. Oh, no, the groom can't see the bride in the dress until the wedding day. That's bad luck. Her spirits lifted at hearing his voice. And we wouldn't want any of that now, would we? No, ma'am. We're going to have a beautiful wedding, and, honey, you look good in a dress made from a feed sack tied up in the middle with a calf rope. He teased. Want me to take a drive there this evening? We could throw down a quilt and have a few beers and watch the stars. We might even see a shooting star and share that for good luck. I would love it, she said. Pick me up at 8. Bring the beer. I'll bring the quilt. Sounds like a plan. Okay, that was 112, 113. Looks like we go to the bottom of 114 here because I've got it marked. Before I forgot, she continued, our high school reunion is Friday evening. Want to go? I thought that was in June, he said. They changed it to May this year. The excuse was that so many people had taken vacations in June, so we're having a small turnout. You'll never believe it, but thought that it would be nostalgic. The committee thought it would be nostalgic. And we're having it in the school cafeteria. There'll only be non-alcoholic drinks. She stood up with her phone still to her ear and walked through the store to see where Bridget might be. Surely it wouldn't take this long to find some peach dresses. Sure, Pax answered. Let's go show 'em that we're engaged. Billy Ray was in charge of everything this year. I'll call him and tell him that will be attending. She finally located Bridget. Tell him that there'll be 4 of us, and I'm sure Maverick will want to be there with Bridget, he said. Will do. See you in the evening, she said, and ended the call. A real girlfriend and fiancé would have ended with I love you, and Elena wondered if she and Pax would ever say it, or what were they doing that would be more convincing. Bridget waved her over and pointed at a large bunch of dresses on a rolling rack. We found so many in the same color that we couldn't carry them. Okay, page 116, 117, 118, 119. Looks like that's all that from those pages, so let's go. How are you feeling? He followed Matt into the living room and took a seat into the sofa. I get tired more each day, but usually a little nap, and I'm ready to go again. I'm glad that I'm able to do what I can, Matt answered. Does Lucas know? Pax asked. Matt shook his head. No, and I'm not telling him until the wedding. The only people who know now are God, my doctor, you, and Elena. And that's the way I want it, so keep it. I can't stand the idea of discussing this issue with everyone in the county or having folks bringing food to the house every time they feel like I'm already dead. Elena needs to be in a happy time. Did I hear my name? Elena entered the room across the sofa, and she planted a kiss on the top of Pax's head. I'm ready to go. Yes, you are, and you look as beautiful as usual. Pax stood up and laced his fingers through hers. Well, thank you, Elena beamed. I'm sorry I'm a little late. Takes a rancher to understand a rancher, he said. We both have jobs to take care of. God, I'm glad that I'm marrying you and not a city slicker, Matt said. Oh, sorry, wrong one. I'm glad that you aren't marrying a city slicker, Matt. Picked up the remote, popped the rest up on the recliner, started surfing through the channels. See you later, Daddy, Elena called out, and she and Pax left the room. She picked up a quilt from the bottom stair and stepped on her way out. See, it's still in the package. I saved it for a special occasion. I'm on her. He raised a hand and kissed the knuckles. He turned on the radio when they got into the truck and kept time to the music with the thumbs on his steering wheel as they drove with an old abandoned homestead a couple miles west of Daisy. We're going back to Baxter's Pond, aren't we? Elena asked when they turned right out of town. I thought that might be the nice place, quiet place, he said. But Elena, after tonight we really need to spend more time with your dad, even if he's watching TV and just watching TV with him. Thank God you said that, she said. I've been thinking the same thing, but tonight I'm glad for some time with you. I haven't been to Baxter's Pond since we were in high school. I wonder if it's still as beautiful as it used to be. She turned off the radio. I always loved the way the moon and the stars reflected in the water. Me too. Pax drove another half a mile and slowed down to make the turn. The moon lit up the old weathered house with the red roses still growing in the front porch. He moved along at less than 5 miles an hour to keep the tires in the path that was really 2 ruts with the weeds going up in the middle. When they got closer, the light to the moon also let them see a dozen trucks parked around the pond. Guess we're not the only ones who discovered Baxter's Pond. He braked, and the country music floated across the flat county into a pickup with them. Alan Jackson was singing Good Time. A dozen or more teenagers were doing a line dance at the edge of the pond. Unless you want a party, I guess we better go find us another place for our date tonight, he said. We're a little too old to be out there with a bunch of high school kids like that. Oh my, she pointed. When the song ended, at least half of the kids peeled off their clothing and jumped into the pond. Have you ever been skinny dipping? Pax turned the truck around and headed back into town. I was far too self-conscious and about my size to do that in high school. Besides, the water is too damn cold coming up from the springs the way it does, she said. Then I guess there won't be any boom-boom until they get out, he laughed. How about you, she asked. Not in Baxter's Pond, and not with a girl unless she's taking a shower, and taking a shower counts, he said. I know just the place, she said. There's a shallow stream at the back of the bar C, and that's pretty nice. Are we going skinny dipping? He wiggled his eyebrows at her. If we do, that'll be all we do, because our steam is every bit as cold as Baxter's Pond, she giggled. Not even a big old strong cowboy like you could keep things in that kind of icy water. Oh, honey, I bet we could get so hot that we boil the water, he said. You know we really shouldn't, she said. 116, 117, 118. We're moving to 119. We're really going through this book. Anyway, 119, and my voice is going. Probably not, but it would be so fun. But it would be fun to see if we could warm up the water, wouldn't it? He teased. Oh yeah, she directed at him in a dirt road leading off the back side of the ranch. I'll open the gate and shut the gate. I hope the beer was good and cold. Yeah, I had it in the freezer for more than an hour. He turned, then pointed at the brake when he came face to face with a gate. She was out the passenger seat before the truck came to a full stop, opened the wide gate when he pulled it through, and she shut it back after the vehicle. Straight ahead, about a quarter of a mile, stay in the ruts. You ever been back there? Nope, he answered. Is this where you take all your fellers? She slapped his arm. No, this is where I go when my feller or my parents or anyone else upsets me. You've heard about folks talk about someone being their person. She put her air quotes around the last two words. Well, this is even better than having a person to tell all your darkest secrets to. This is my place where I go sort out all my problems. I've never shared it with anyone. Park right underneath that tree. And that was page 119. Moving forward to page 124. I got to find where I marked it. Sometimes it's easier than others to find where I marked it. Okay, so 124, 125, 126, 127, 128. So we'll take a deep seat. Okay. For two people who ran from each other for so long, y'all are sure making up for lost time, the voice in her head pestered her. Oh, shut up. Elena sent up a prayer that had more to do with red-hot boom-boom in a cold creek than it did with being able to start a tractor again. She slipped her phone from her shirt pocket, but before she could touch the screen, the damn thing rang. She had to scramble to keep from dropping it and was out of breath when she finally answered. Hello. Pax, I was about to call you. About last night. I'm so sorry, Elena. I got so caught up in the moment I wasn't thinking about us having boom boom, so I didn't even come prepared, Pax said. When can you take one of those tests? I'll know in a week either way, she said, and I was caught up in the moment too, so part of the blame is on me. We can't do that again. Not even, he said. Not even, she butted in, and I can't talk. It'll make the annulment that much tougher. Besides, we're going to be too busy between now and then for that alone time anyway. It was pretty amazing, he said. Yep, she agreed. So what is on your agenda for today, he asked. If you want to come over, we could play dominoes with Daddy, she suggested. Sounds great. I'll be there at about 7:30, he told her. She sighed and put the phone back in her pocket. From the time that she was old enough to know that boys were different from girls, she felt something for Paxton Baker. Then there was that incident when he kissed her. The next day she made up her mind to apologize for slapping him, but then she found him, and he and Amanda Sue Williams were behind the school buses with their lips locked. Boys, she muttered, they think they're only the ones who feel rejection. She started up the tractor engine, put her earbuds in, and started her playlist in her phone. Pax threw his tools in the back of the old ranch work truck and was about to get in the cab when his phone rang. He saw it, and it was Elena, and answered it even before the engine started. I need help, she said. Right now, he asked. This very minute. I got a call from Daddy. Can you go with me to the Plainview to get him? He's confused. I can drive him back home, but I'll need someone to bring my vehicle back, she said. He's sitting on the side of the road. Broke down? Pax started the engine, then changed his mind. No, he's lost and doesn't know what to do. I can be there in time when you get your truck fired up if you don't mind me coming as I am, he said. I don't care how you look. I'm a mess too. I just walked into the house after plowing all day in an open cab tractor, she told him. So I'm not a beauty queen right now, and I don't smell like roses. I'm on my way, thank you. I really appreciate you being able to help, she told him, and ended the call. Pax was completely out of breath when he jumped into Elena's passenger seat and strapped the seatbelt across his chest. The truck air conditioning felt good on sweaty body, but he sure would have preferred a dip in the cold creek where they spent the night before. What happened? He asked. Daddy said he was coming home from Tooele and got turned around, her voice cracked. He was going for the vets for some calf medicine. I was out on the tractor when he called, and I figured he'd driven over there and right back home, but he never made it. She gripped the steering wheel so hard that her knuckles were white. She sounded as if she could break into tears any minute. Pull over and let me drive, Pax said. She shook her head. It'll take too long. Hold one of your hands out. I can't. Those two words were tough for her to get out. They're shaking too bad, and I need them both to drive. You need to let me drive, darling. His voice was steady as he could. If you wreck and kill us, who'll take care of Matt? She braked so hard that she left skid marks on the pavement, hopped out of the truck, ran around the backside, and met Pax coming the other way. Need a hug, he asked. Maybe later. She passed him without even slowing down. He got behind the wheel, sped down the dirt road. He didn't slow down till he turned on south on Highway 27. With her hands still trembling, Elena pulled out her phone and punched in a number. This is Elena Carey. I'm Matthew Carey's daughter. She hit the speaker icon and laid the phone on the console between her and Pax. "This is Dr. Winslow. What can I do for you?" She explained the situation. "I read what you sent home with him, plus I looked up everything I could find on the internet. Nothing said about confusion or memory loss." This is page 124, 125, 126. Here's 127 and 128. "That's a side effect of the medicine I gave him. Hopefully it's to slow down the growth of the tumor. Now you have a decision to make. Do you want him to live a little longer or have a clear mind for what time he has left? If you decide on the later, then simply throw away the pills. I'm so sorry to have to tell you this. The meds work for most of my patients, but about 10% do have side effects that you described." "If we decide to get rid of the pills, how long will it take to get him back to normal?" she asked. "About 48 hours, the doctor answered. "Do we need to taper them off?" she asked. "No, tell him not to take one for tonight," he answered. "Any more questions?" "That should do it. Thank you." Elena ended the call and heaved a long sigh of relief. "I'll talk to him, but I'd rather have all of him for the less time than worry about him every time he walks out the door." They found Matt on the north side of Plainview as the junction of the farm road. He was sitting on the tailgate with his truck and waving at the cars as they passed by. When Elena hopped out of the truck, he got down and slammed the tailgate shut. "What took you so long? I've been sitting here for hours. You all right? It's pretty warm out today," Pax asked. "Sweating a little, but I'm used to that. I'm a rancher," Matt told him. "Get in the truck, Daddy, and I'll take you home." Elena started around to the driver's side of the truck. Matt folded his arms over his chest and propped a foot against a tire. "Don't you start thinking you can boss me around because I made a wrong turn I couldn't find my way home. I'm still the head honcho, and don't you forget it. I'm glad to let you know, be the boss man, but you've got to be out of here, but you've been out here in the heat for a while, and I think you need a big cold glass of water. Maybe a sweet tea. Why don't we go on in the house and see what we can find?" she asked. Fine, Matt got behind the wheel of the vehicle. "Now y'all go on back inside of your truck, Elena. I'll follow you so I don't get lost again." "I was going to drive you, Daddy, so we could talk on the way home. I called your doctor, and he said that you and I need to discuss some things," Elena told him. He tossed the keys to her. Why in the hell didn't you say so to begin with?" He slid over into passenger seat. "See you at the house, Pax." Paxton waved over his shoulder. "You get the sweet tea ready, and I'll pick a pizza up on the way through town." Elena was good with her dad, Pax thought, much better than she'd ever been with his grandmother. She had to be worried out of her mind, and yet she knew exactly how to handle Matt. She'd be a wonderful mother someday if she managed her kids the way she managed taking care of her father, with patience and kindness. Matt would never know how much he'd scared her that day, the same way her kids would never know how much she fretted every time they would leave her sight. That was 126, 127, 128. Looks like I marked page 129, 130, and 131. We're going to end at 131 tonight, which is probably a good thing because my voice is starting to go. Elena waited until she trusted her voice not to shake, and they were well underway before she told her dad what the doctor had to say about the medicine. "So what do you think, Daddy? I can't make the decision for you." "I wanted to live a few more months so I could go out knowing that you and Pax were going to have a baby to take over the ranch when y'all get old," he admitted. "But I don't want to burden you with having to come find me every time I leave the house, either. This is as much your decision as it is mine, sweetheart. Is quality or quantity more important to you?" Elena wiped away a tear with the back of her hand. "I don't want to lose you, but I sure don't want to lose you before you breathe your last breath, either. Seems to me that if your memory is gone, then I've already lost you anyway." "Then I'll quit taking the pills. My main focus right now is your wedding, and I need to be lucid for that," he said. "Now, how are things between you and Pax? Did I sense a little tension back there?" She shook her head. "We're fine. We were both really worried about you." He patted her on the shoulder. "It won't happen again. I'll stick close to home for a couple of days. Pax is a good man to come running out of the field when you call him." "He really is," Elena agreed. That part was the gospel truth for sure. And she could add an amazing friend and still not be lying in the least. Pax must have called in an order for pizza as he drove because he pulled into the yard right behind him. He took 2 boxes out of the back seat, carried them into the porch, and said, "I really should have gone home and cleaned up. A feller shouldn't come to his fiance's house looking like a field hand, but I thought y'all might be hungry." "Son, Elena's going to see you in a worse condition than you already are when y'all are married," Matt told him. "She knows she's getting a rancher, thank God for that." He rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. "And you'll see her as dirty as she is today many times too. So let's sit down at the table and enjoy conversation over supper." "Yes, sir. I'll set the pizzas on the table. Help Elena get out some plates," Pax offered. Ain't no need for that. We got paper napkins on the table. We can sure enough eat pizza without dirtying up plates or silverware," Matt said. Says that not having to do dishes is one of the joys of eating finger foods. Elena caught Pax's eyes and nodded. His head barely bobbed. He understood what she had talked about with her father all too well. Without either of them saying a word, they read each other's minds. It might not be a huge thing to most people, but it amazed Elena and gave her something to think about. Had it been anyone else other than Pax sitting at the table that evening, she might have snarled at the dirt on the shirt, but she saw right past the grime and even past the bulging biceps and looked right at the heart of the man. He dropped what he was doing to go with her, had taken over the wheel to calm her down, and then hustled up a meal. Now that was a man that any woman should be proud to call her husband. Any woman. A streak of jealousy shot through Elena. She'd known a touch of that feeling a few times when she seen a woman coming on to Pax in a bar, but she never experienced such a fiery surge before. Maybe it was because they had Boom Boom, or because her crazy heart was beginning to think that this engagement was the real deal. When they finished eating, Matt got out the dominoes and shuffled them in the middle of the kitchen table. "Don't think because I'm a little confused today that y'all are going to beat me at Shoot the Moon. I'm the king of this game." He chose his 7 tiles. "I remember the first time I beat you, I should have gotten a trophy to sit up on the mantel. That was more exciting than when I first won my first bronc ride." Elena nudged him on the shoulder as she passed the way to refill all their tea glasses. "Well, darling daughter, don't expect a trophy tonight, because I'm feeling real lucky," he set up his dominoes. Elena looked across the room for a few seconds and liked the feeling of having a family around the table. She wished she could freeze that moment in time so she wouldn't get her heart broken twice. Once when she lost her father, and the next would be when Pax left after the annulment. That was 1:31, and that is where we're stopping tonight because Donna's voice is very raspy. I hope to see you tomorrow. I don't know if I will. I know I've kept you 2 days waiting, and I apologize. It is one of my favorite books, and it really cheers me up, so we'll just see where it goes. And God bless each and every one of you. I hope you're keeping your social distance. I hope you're washing your hands. When you can't wash your hands, use your hand sanitizer. And wear your mask. Love each and every one of you. Stay safe. Stay well. God bless.